talk about a trio of wide receivers, really an entire wide receiver situation for a team, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've been a hot topic this week, and you look at Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster, Diontae Johnson. We're seeing the pendulum swing in different directions for all of these different names here. I first want to start about talking about Chase Claypool. This breakout for Chase Claypool is absolutely insane. He looks like DK Metcalf as a rookie last year, except he broke out in week 2 or week 3. And it's one of those things, it's like fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, shame on me. At this point, you got to plug Chase Claypool in. He's a wide receiver 2 on the week for me. I think he's a guy you got to plug him in. If you have him as a flex option, you should feel phenomenal about it. And in this matchup here against the Tennessee Titans, it's kind of this battle of the undefeated teams. It's a 50-point over-under. I think Claypool's going to absolutely eat. And Claypool didn't play more than 40% of snaps until week 3. He's had his bye week already, and he's still top 15 in deep targets in the NFL. He's second in the league in yards per reception. He leads the league in yards per route run, third in yards per target. Every catch that this guy gets is just dripping with fantasy points all over it. And he's currently 10th in fantasy points per game for wide receivers. Not to mention he has 6 touchdowns. I know that's going to get skewed by the 4 that he had in 1 week, which is just insane. That's never going to happen again for Claypool. But Claypool scored in 2 out of the first 5 games of his career. Like, you can't take that as a point against him. I think Chase Claypool is broken out. He's a proven stud. If I can buy him low still, if somebody thinks, hey, Diontae Johnson's going to come back and Claypool's going to get mitigated to a pure deep threat role, maybe even that happens. But either way, I want to have Claypool on my roster. Alex, are you with me here on this Claypool hype?
Absolutely. And you're so right. It took us a little bit of time to get on Chase Claypool. But to me, Steph, it reminds me of A.J. Brown last season. I remember A.J. Brown had a couple of these pop games early, but wasn't really that consistent. And then when he started getting snaps, it was just week in, week out. You see these monster plays from A.J. Brown, and you start saying to yourself, can A.J. Brown really do this each and every game to have value in my fantasy lineup? And if you went along for that A.J. Brown ride, you were very, very happy and likely made a run deep into your playoffs. So Claypool feels the same way to me this season. Yes, there's going to be some ups and some downs, but right now with this offense in Pittsburgh, the way that Big Ben is throwing the ball, the snaps and the targets that Claypool is getting, you have to keep putting him in your lineup until further notice. He's just producing week in and week out. And after not only the boom game, but to come back and get 78% of snaps, lead the team in snaps, you have to keep playing him, especially after the production he put up there. You said he was a solid wide receiver 2 on the week. What do you have, 17 points last week? So you have to keep rolling Chase Claypool out in your lineup until further notice. And if you were one of those big spenders on the waiver wire for Claypool, you definitely probably feel the same way. You didn't pick him up for nothing, and you're not going to be benching him at this point. So I love rolling him out there as a wide receiver too. With the volume he's getting, he actually has carved out a nice little floor for himself. And like we saw 2 weeks ago, we know exactly what the upside is. So I actually like Claypool more than any other Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver. And if I'm looking at the rest of the season, give me Claypool over Juju, over Diontae Johnson as well.
So we talked about Claypool. Let's kind of put him to this side. Let's talk about the other 2 Pittsburgh receivers that you're looking to start potentially every single week. Maybe not anymore for Juju, but it's Juju Smith-Schuster, Diontae Johnson. Alex, are you with me on that? I would rather have Diontae Johnson rest of season over Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I'd rank these guys Claypool, Diontae, and Juju. Juju right now is not startable. I mean, he's maybe a flex. If he scores the touchdowns, he's there. But outside of that big week 1 game, he had a decent game in week 2 and 3, but he's totally fallen off of a cliff. And he's not getting the targets either. I mean, you look at these Pittsburgh Steeler targets, Claypool on the year, we know he was a rookie, got off to a slow start. He's at 24. Diontae Johnson's at 26 and missed a game. James Washington's at 26 and Juju's at 28. So Juju's not really getting significant target volume over these other guys, and he's not putting up any production with what he's getting. I mean, last couple games, 5 targets, 4 targets. You just can't have 4 or 5 targets from a guy who plays in the slot as close to the line of scrimmage as Juju does. I mean, he's averaging 8.4 yards per reception on the season. With 28 targets, that's just not going to get it done. So I'm out on Juju until we see something else from him. If you have the opportunity to sell based on name value, someone else thinks they're buying low, there are so many other guys I would take over Juju. If I had Juju, I'd throw offers out there for Chase Claypool and see if I can pick him up.
We'll see if you can get him. But yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. 17% target share. That's 50th amongst all wide receivers. And he's really been relegated to more of a slot guy, like you said. And even though the Steelers this year, have, kind of turned into like Big Ben's like game manager. They're not this high-flying offense you remember, even though Chase Claypool's having these great games. You would think in an offense where Big Ben's not trying to push the ball downfield that Juju's going to have a lot of value in that and see a high target share. Right now, his average target distance is 4.8 yards. That's 99th amongst all wide receivers. He's only seen one deep target on the year. He had the 2 touchdowns, but has only seen 4 red zone targets on the year, which is outside of the top 30. So you look across the board at almost every single metric. Juju's is down. I'm not sure if he, I've seen some people, some Juju truthers saying that maybe he's still a little bit hurt. We saw him banged up all last year. There could be some of that. He's trying to shake off some of the injury rust, or maybe some of the injuries are popping back up for him. He's just not getting separation, whether it's near the line of scrimmage or a little bit more downfield in the middle of the field. He's just not getting it. And his yards after the catch doesn't look great either. So I'm not sure what's wrong with Juju. Maybe long-term he just needs a change of scenery. I think if you put him in the right situation, he can still dominate. I do still think he has juice, but as far as 2020 goes, we haven't seen that. So there's no reason to believe that it's going to come, even though, 2 years ago we had that 1,400-yard season. I think part of that just came from what everybody else said, like the Antonio Brown effect that allowed things for Juju to open up when Big Ben was throwing the ball almost 700 times in a year, wearing out that elbow. So for Juju, he's just a guy. He's really not startable. I'm trying to sell him for anything that I possibly can at this point. Even like a Brandon Cooks that we're starting to see emerge. If you can get your hands on him, any of these other kind of high upside wide receivers, guys that you at least can feel confident putting in a flex spot every single week. That's the value that Juju should be at. It's almost like DJ Moore to start the year. You just got to, it's a guy that you drafted to be a lot higher, but now you got to kind of change your perspective on him and view him as more of this flex play, or maybe even just a bench guy.